This is Michael Phelan with T360. I'm the Senior Vice President of Technology and Brokerage Marketing. And today we are going to be talking about one of everybody in the industry's favorite topics, lead generation and conversion, right? There's always that thing where everybody always wants to talk about more leads, but we all know where the rubber hits the road is with conversion. So we have got one of the industry's experts with us today, Aaron Glass from Prime Street, who's going to be talking us through and kind of pulling back the curtain a little bit on some of the things that they have learned since they've been in the space, helping brokerages and agents handle hundreds of or thousands of leads each month, and some of the things that they've done. So they're going to share some of that magic sauce with us today. And we're also going to be talking about a research study that T3 and Prime Street have undertaken together to explore this topic in a little bit more. So with that said, I want to introduce Aaron Glass from Prime Street. Aaron, tell us a little bit about yourself and your background.
Hey, thank you. So I've been in the prop tech industry now for, 10 years. I was early on at Op City, saw the transition to Realtor.com, enjoyed the space so much I came back. So I'm now with Prime Street AI. We just adopted the AI model in early January, so we're super excited about it, and we'll talk a little bit about it here. And so how we got started, just to kind of set the scene here, I guess. So Prime Street was born out of necessity. So a few years ago, Homes.com was owned by, or was a subsidiary of the same company that we are. And they did a study and showed some data about things like contact rates, customer experience, things like that as a result, or from Homes.com leads. And what they saw is that contact rates were really, really low. And so Prime Street was created not long after that. And so we've stepped in to handle things like customer service. We've since separated with Homes.com, but we stepped in to handle things like customer service, and helping convert those leads down funnel as well. Now we use AI for lead engagement to show us data about what's going on with leads. I'm super excited to talk about it.
Well, yeah, and this is one of my favorite topics to talk about because T360 obviously is kind of one of the leading consulting firms in the real estate brokerage space. Did a research study of a couple of years ago now where they interviewed surveyed 10,000 agents of what they most wanted from their brokerages. And it's probably no surprise to anybody that'll watch this video today or any other time that the thing they wanted most was leads. And at T3, we always have this saying that it's not, when you actually cook it down, agents don't actually want leads, right? And we can kind of discern that by the fact that they have a hard time responding sometimes to some of these things. But what they really want is business opportunities or ready-made business opportunities. We talk about it. So, and that's really where you guys have kind of filled that void. You guys help with both the generation side, but really the conversion piece of getting those things kind of warmed up and ready for an agent. So, talk to me about this concept that, brokerages don't really have lead generation. That's one of the things that we kind of studied in this most recent study that we're going to be releasing in about a few weeks' time. They're actually pretty good at generating leads. They do an okay job with that, but what they really struggle is on the conversion piece. So tell us a little bit about some of what's the thing that you guys have learned as you've kind of moved into that space? What the biggest lesson you've learned that brokerages aren't doing as they kind of prevents them from being as successful as possible?
Well, I think a big thing is just data surrounding the leads and the lead sources in general. And, I don't want to give too much of the paper away, but that was something that was really telling for me. A lot of people don't have necessary technology in place to handle the entire customer life cycle. So they're buying leads because they know they need to, but they don't necessarily know what's happening with them, whether they're being contacted, whether they're even converting. So I would say a big opportunity is just implementing tracking, whether that be through a third-party source or developing the tracking technology on your own. I would say that's a really big one. Another piece we see is just ongoing education. Cultures vary so differently from brokerage to brokerage, company to company. And you'd be surprised how often we hear that agents just want and need training, coaching, ongoing education. So that's another big one as well. And technology in general, not to go on a big tangent here.
Yeah, no, I mean, well, let's just go back to that because you got a lot there. When we were working on this survey study together and we were getting the initial data back, one of the things I always like looking for is correlations, right? How can we learn how one thing impacts another thing? And so we started with some real basics when we were working on this paper. And one of the questions that we asked when we got the data back was, we asked brokerages to define how confident they were in their ability to convert. And when they responded, they kind of gave us some idea, and probably no one will be surprised by the fact that by and large, most brokerages are not super confident in their ability to convert. But the one thing, or I guess I shouldn't say the one thing, one of the things that would determine or increase their level of confidence was tracking, right? And it almost didn't matter what metrics they used. They just had to use more. And our study found at least three metrics, right? We found they started to group up. If they were tracking three or more metrics, then their confidence with their ability to convert went way, way up. And that's something you guys spend a lot of time studying, ever since we had our first conversations. So what are some of the most important metrics that you guys pay attention to when you're kind of thinking about conversion?
I think that's a great question. And leads are kind of hard to tell. They have such a long life cycle in most instances. I think the average transaction time from a customer lead to a home sold is about 6 months, I would say on average. Close rate is the obvious one. From lead created to home sold, how many of those can you get? And again, that's an easier one. So what we look at to help us track whether or not a source is really working out for us, the first one is whether or how many times we can refer a client to an agent. So in our world, we're buying leads, interviewing them, introducing them to an agent. So to a brokerage perspective, they would see that as how many leads can they get in contact with and start the process with. So that's an easy one to tell kind of early on. How many times can you actually get in contact with them? The second one being a little bit further down the life cycle are the actual meetings that take place. So not only can you get in contact with them, can you actually meet with them in person? And those typically help us understand.
I, yeah, and I love those. And one of the things that I've loved because since we've been working with you guys is really kind of breaking that funnel into a couple different pieces. I think in the industry, we're just beginning to explore this concept, right? And really breaking this all down. Other industries have done this for a long time, but that response rate, right? Not forget like conversion rate, forget, all those appointment rate, just starting with, can you get these people on the phone, right? After they've indicated that they're interested in talking to somebody, can you actually get a conversation? So I love that one. We've started to refer to that one as kind of a health metric, a funnel health metric that define how healthy is your pipeline. And then that one that you mentioned in terms of like, do they actually ever end up meeting with the agent, right? Because I think most of the time when we talk to brokerages, if they can get an agent in front of a good lead, the agents are usually pretty good. If it's in that window of 60 to 90 days, the agents are generally pretty good. That's why they're in this profession. But if you ask them to go beyond that, it gets pretty challenging for them. So that kind of conversion or that lead to appointment is a good one. What else? Any other metrics that you guys pay particular or close attention to that you would kind of suggest to brokerages?
Well, those are the big ones, especially in a business like ours where we are introducing live transferred referrals. I would say those are the key indicators aside from close.
Yeah, the other one that we like to kind of coach brokerages to think about is cost per acquisition, right? How
Mhm.
much do they need to spend to actually get a closed transaction, right? And then, of course, what's the company retained company dollar? So, I think again, we asked people during this paper about 10 different metrics. I think it was about 10, right? It was 8 or 10 that we asked folks about, and you got those ones at the fairly, cost per lead, those kind of things, response rate, appointment rate, and then finally cost per acquisition. That's a pretty good mix of metrics to be tracking. And like you said, you can do that with software or you can do it by hand. I've seen brokerages do it by hand. It can take some time, but it's well done. So when you guys are talking to brokerages, how they can help themselves, where do you see them generating the most ROI from? Tell me a little bit about how they're able to do that. Where can
Uh,
they get, where can they get the biggest bang for their buck? If they're going to start to try to improve their abilities, where do you see that happen?
Not to beat a dead horse, but the tracking piece. But another end of that, technology is a broad scale, and it's crazy because sometimes we talk to brokers who have, up to 8, 9, 10 different technology platforms that they're moving in and out of. So having, integration with technology, getting it all into one place, I would say is a good one, but also engagement technology. Agents are so busy, brokers are so busy, real estate professionals in general are really busy. They make their money by being in front of people, showing homes, working through deals. And sometimes people fall through the cracks. Prime Street has a rule: we update every 7 days. It just means we're getting in contact with somebody at least once a week and staying top of mind. And I know I referenced, about how long a lead takes to close, about 6 months. So if you think about it, if you're only contacting somebody, once a month, once every other week, however, how long, if it's not on a weekly basis, they might fall through the cracks. So having good tech that can do that, automatically for you is a really big one.
Yeah, so that's interesting. So that's one of the ways that you guys really add value to your relationship with the brokerages, is that nurturing technology and kind of doing. What are some of the other ways that Prime Street kind of really enhances or improves brokerage's success?
Well, customer experience. Before I speak to any broker, I go to their website and I fill out a lead form. And I'll do it about a day or two in advance before I show up to that meeting. And I'm just trying to see, how long does it take them to contact me? What's that conversation like? Are they texting, emailing, calling, or just one? And so customer experience is a big one, especially if they know your brand already. So if somebody goes onto your website, fills out their information, and they're excited to talk with you, and they never hear from you, likelihood of that introduction just goes down. And you'd be surprised, I'll fill out these forms, I'll never get in contact with them. And so, sorry, go
How
ahead.
often does that happen? I gotta ask. How often do you fill out the form and you don't get anything back?
More times than not,
Yeah.
unfortunately. Yeah.
Yeah. It's amazing to me in that in our industry where we have talked about this for a while now, that we still haven't been able to solve that problem, right? Is that if you have agents responding to your leads, more often than not, those leads will still go unanswered. So how do you guys help solve that problem for brokerages?
Well, I mean, if you think about it, agents, they're really good at selling. But if you start sifting through leads and start getting beaten up by people unhappy that you called, or you got the wrong number, or whatever it is, agents start to make judgments. Everybody does. We say we're a salesperson's best friend because we're saving people from having to make those initial judgments and find all that information out. And so to the agents, the reason why we're their best friend is we're not making any judgments on those leads. Every single one of those is getting contacted, and contacted really quickly. And then
Yeah,
to the
let me stop you there, Aaron, because this is something that I think is a fascinating point. We all know the fastest way to improve lead conversion is speed to lead. So tell us how fast are you guys able to respond to a lead?
Well, even on our worst day, it's under 10 seconds, but also the AI is fractions of a second.
Yeah, I mean, and to me, that's such an interesting stat. When you guys first shared that with us, when we go to a brokerage and if we do any type of lead conversion or lead generation kind of study or strategy on a particular brokerage, we're talking minutes, right? We're happy if we can get most leads responded to in an hour, right? And yet we all know that 3 minutes is kind of that famous sweet spot where it kind of goes up. And you guys are doing it in 10 seconds. So tell me a little bit about, without giving away too much, tell me about how you guys do it so fast.
Well, we have a big team. And
Yeah.
that's where, that's what a lot of brokers need help with, especially even if they have an agent on duty model.
Mhm.
So if they have 3, 4 agents calling, leads are coming in consistently. Sometimes they'll get hung up on the phone. Leads that come in after lack in response time. So to us, we're so big that lead comes in, it's very easy for one of our ISAs, CSRs, to be on the phone with them. We also have technology that gets us there quickly, but a lot of it is just manpower. We have a really big team going at it.
Yeah, and so let me take us in a little bit different direction. When we were all getting to know each other, one of the things that really kind of opened my eyes about what you do for brokerages is that, most of the brokerages that we talk to, or certainly most of them, they have a couple of lead sources, right? Maybe 2, 3, if they're kind of really, and we saw this in our study, right? When people were indicating how many lead sources, most of them, and I should mention in our study that we had large brokerages 10,000 plus agents all the way down to teams of like 50 agents and so. So we had purposely a broad spectrum. And you had a few lead sources in there. The company website was the most popular place and some other things. But one of the things that you guys had that was really unique in the industry was you have insight to dozens of lead sources that are out there that different brokerages are experimenting with, and kind of the conversion rates and stuff. So tell me how you do some of like, for lack of a better word, let's say lead coaching. When you're working with a brokerage and they're trying to figure out where to spend their money to generate the most amount of leads, how do you guys work with them in that?
Um, Data, insightful data. So, we're not only tracking how well lead sources are performing of those three metrics that we spoke about earlier, and it's a little bit more extensive than that, but we organize it really well. So we're not only showing you how well your lead sources are performing, we're showing you how well your agents are performing with those lead sources as well. So maybe your agents perform better with, leads that come from your website than they do from Facebook, for example. So we're breaking it down and showing you from lead creation to lead close, step by step, what's going on, how many times we're calling in. Well, and that's also a really insightful piece of data that we show is, this lead source, it may take us 30 or 40 calls to get in contact with somebody that we can refer. And this lead source may only take 2 or 3 calls to get us in contact with somebody who can refer.
So if they're trying to really refine their spend and improve conversion, and what I love about conversion for broker friends that are listening, this is like instant profit, right? You've already paid to generate the lead, and the more conversion that you can squeeze out of those leads you're generating, that's almost all pure profit, right? So if you can get better at that, if you're trying to drive revenue or drive profitability and you're generating leads, this is a great way to do it. So I think that's great. They can take their spend, they can use their spend more efficiently. We can speed up sales cycles, and things like that if they're working with you. So let's kind of start to kind of land the plane. We got about another 5 minutes or so, but I want to do two things before we finish. One is I want to talk about what's a lead. I purposely left this to the end, right? Because we instantly launched into kind of like talking about lead conversion and lead things like that. But there's a lot of discrepancy in the industry, especially among people selling leads. What is a lead? So tell me how Prime Street defines a lead, and then I'm going to offer a couple thoughts on that.
I think the easiest example is somebody who actually shows intent. There are lots of situations out there, lots of lead aggregators out there that if you just go onto that website, it's taking all your IP data and giving that to somebody as a lead. But I had no idea that my information is being shared with you. I have no idea what's going on. So you contact me, it's unfruitful. We shut that down very quickly. And so a lead is more than just a name, number, email. You can get that through anybody searching through your website. A lead to Prime Street AI specifically is somebody who's actually expressed intent. So was it forced registration? Sometimes that creates leads, but most of the time they're upset. Things like backend data. If somebody did not go onto a listing, decide they were interested, filled out their information, if those sequence of events did not happen on their own, then we wouldn't consider that a lead.
Yeah, and this is again, there's other industries that have figured this out, right? And I think these conversations are just starting to happen in real estate. What you're describing to me is a sales qualified lead, right? And this is something that's kind of near and dear to my heart because it's somebody who's legitimately interested. They've shown intent. They're like, hey, I want to talk to somebody. And then there's this whole other group of leads called marketing qualified leads. If some people are familiar with HubSpot, they've kind of been the ones that kind of authored some of these terms. And these are people who are kind of casually interested. It's probably most of the people on most brokerages' websites, right? Are like they're looking at the interior photos of houses. They want to snoop on their neighbor. Maybe they're thinking about doing something way down the road. But they're really like top funnel. And I think one of the reasons that the industry struggles with conversion is they just send all of that to an agent as fast as possible, right? They don't differentiate between those leads. And you guys have taken the approach of really kind of focusing on that batch that has that intent, that really is interested in doing something. So I think that's a really important piece, this concept of demand generation, marketing qualified leads, sales qualified leads, and making sure that we're developing business practices that are appropriate for each of those buckets. Is one of the ways to be efficient and not throw top of funnel leads away because they're not ready, right? So, as we kind of talk about this, let's just talk a little bit about the paper, and kind of what we did and what we're getting ready to do so people can know what to expect there. One of the cool things that T3 is able to do is partner with industry thought leaders like Prime Street that are really trying to understand our space and understand what it means to be in the lead generation and conversion business. So we surveyed 50 brokerages out of the T360 Mega 1000, of different sizes, different regions of the US, different business models, and asked them to answer a 20-question survey for us, with some pretty deep information that then we could begin to explore kind of what's happening in the industry right now as we're in this space. And so Prime Street is then sitting down with us and kind of putting their eyes on that data, helping us to analyze it. So in a few weeks' time, we're going to be releasing a report from the two of us, kind of that T3 is in the process of writing right now and sharing some of that insight. So where can they get that, Aaron? When that paper's finished, where are they going to be able to get that?
Well, I hope on primestreet.ai.
Okay. So yeah, absolutely. We're going to make that available in a couple of different places. You'll be able to get that from T360, but for sure, primestreet.ai. So if you're interested in getting that information, reach out to one of us and we'll make sure that you can get access to that. Watch for more information coming out on this soon. We're going to be probably doing another call with the team as Prime Street and talking about some of the insights that we're beginning to see in that data. So Aaron, I want to thank you for jumping on here with us today. We've really enjoyed kind of working with Prime Street and getting to know you guys, and having you guys really help us to approach the industry from a thoughtful perspective. T3's objective is to enable intelligent change. I see you guys are like, right at the tip of the spear on that, not just kind of using kind of things that we think might be or anecdotal evidence, but really digging in. So thanks, Aaron. Thank everybody at Prime Street for T360. We're glad to be partners with you guys, and we'll look forward to doing some more great work soon.
Wouldn't be here without you guys. So we appreciate you guys as well, T3.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Thanks, Aaron.